Chapter 5, Giving 100. The question lingering in my mind as 10th grade drew to close wasn't whether I wanted to play football the following season. I knew I did. The question was whether or not I'd make the team. When I showed up for summer conditioning before my junior year, it was painfully, and I do mean painfully, obvious that I'd not spent the year getting back into shape. I was wheezing every time I ran, and I was still carrying extra weight. After the first day, my muscles ached. Thankfully, though, the coaches recognized enough skill and drive to bring me back on and let me practice with the running backs as someone who might actually see playing time. My friends, who appreciated my goofy antics in the locker room and practice field, were glad to have me back. I was glad to be hanging around with my boys again, despite the fact that I knew it was unlikely I would ever set foot on the field during the game. Most running backs in high school football are around 195 pounds, and I was a hefty 268. Because I was still jawing about playing running back, the coaches continued to allow me to stay with the running backs, creating a fifth-string running back position just for me. I know they did it just to shut me up, but it gave me satisfaction. I practiced with the other backs, and we watched film together to dissect how they'd been playing and how they could improve. I was eager to learn everything I could from their performances. 100. Although I was aware of my shortcomings, I never let go of my dream of being a pro running back. Besides my size, I knew what raw talent looked like, and I was honest with myself about the fact that I didn't have a big share of it. You know who did have it? My brother Brian. I observed the way he moved effortlessly on the field, and it wasn't just football either. He was magic on the basketball court and on the track as well. Though Brian gave each practice, game, and meet his all, he was naturally gifted and didn't have to work as hard as some guys. That wasn't me. I had one move, and that was hard work. I've always said that I might not have had as much natural talent as the next guy on the field, but I would outwork them. I'd put in the time it takes to improve my skills and become excellent. In practice, that meant I was giving everything I had. Some guys would slack off when the coach was busy elsewhere, and others saved their fiercest fire for the game. But every practice, I was giving everything I had to improve. When I returned to the field after taking a year off, I knew that it was now or never, so I came back with more passion than ever. Even so, as a kid in my third year of high school who'd never seen a minute of playing time, thank you, it was hard to see when I was going to blossom into the player I believed I could be. For all I knew, it might never happen, no matter how hard I tried. When I was 8, Butch told me to see the movie Rudy. It was about a kid who dreamed of playing for Notre Dame, but for a lot of reasons was a total underdog. Sound familiar? Rudy even had a learning disability like me. His challenge was dyslexia, and mine was a reading comprehensive deficit. When Rudy was finally allowed to transfer to Notre Dame and practice with his team as a walk-on, he won the hearts of the guys on the team. In some ways, I felt like Rudy. All the guys on the team liked me, but the odds of me ever getting playing time in a game were pretty slim. But every day in practice, I gave 100%. At the far end of the field, opposite the scoreboard, was a very steep hill we called the Green Monster. Our coach had us run that hill to build our endurance. Trust me, that hill lived up to its nickname. On wet days, we couldn't even attempt it because it was pretty much a vertical surface and so was almost impossible to scale. But when we were sent out to run, I'd give it all I had. At the top of the hill, I'd pull my inhaler out of my pocket and take a deep breath of medicine. Yeah, I felt a little goofy about it, but I did what I had to do. Then I'd shuffle slide back down, turn around, and climb again. That was my junior year. The guy who worked hard even though it didn't immediately pay off. The guy who ran to the top of the green monster as fast as he could, but had to stop for a puff of an inhaler at the top. I wasn't the fittest or the fastest player on the team. I didn't even know how to get there, but I kept trying, day after day. I just kept climbing that green monster, hoping that one day all the pain, sweat, and effort would be worth it. Opening game. Our first game of the official season was against Amherst. It was clear to me from my not-so-great workouts and practices that I wasn't going to be seeing playing time, but it was still fun to be part of the action. I'd missed being on the team last year, hanging out with my friends, trash-talking our opponents, gearing up to go out on the field and play the game. As we stepped out of the locker room to run through a tunnel of cheerleaders and marching band members, I felt the excitement of the crowd and the thumping pulse of the band's drums. Football was a big deal in rural Virginia, and our whole town came out to cheer on the Jefferson Forest High School Cavaliers. As I took my place on the bench, I settled in to watch the game from the best seat in the house. My favorite guy to watch, and also one of the fans' favorites, was my best friend Maurice, who was the captain on the team. We met when I was 7, when Brian was dating a great girl named Pam. Whenever Pam would come over and the two of them would snuggle up on the couch, I would wedge myself right in between them. I thought Pam was my girlfriend. "Mom!" Brian would holler through the house, "Get Rashad out of here." I was really annoying. But my Pam was a smart cookie, so she started bringing over her little brother Maurice, who was my age, to distract me. And it worked. Maurice and I became best friends, and by the time we were in high school, Brian and Pam had married. In that first game against Amherst, which we won, Maurice played an amazing game. If he wasn't my best friend, I might have been jealous of him, because in a lot of ways, he was living the life I'd always imagined for myself. As a 6-year-old kid, I wouldn't have even conceived of the possibility that I'd still be warming the bench a decade later. But Maurice was my boy. He was a really talented quarterback and safety, and I loved cheering him on. It would have been more fun to be in the huddle with him, but as I expected, I spent the whole game on the bench. I didn't mind too much because Monday was coming. Scout. For me, Monday afternoon was my version of Friday night under the lights. Our first string defense needed someone to practice against, and so the coaches had scrubs like me, guys who weren't ready to be starters, play on the scout team. As the scout team's running back, I approached every day of practice as if everything depended on it. Practice was the only game day I had. So I did all the things first-string players did on game days. I wrapped my wrists, I used eye black, I put spat on my shoes, taping them for extra ankle support. I took everything about these scrimmages seriously. Only the coaches watched these games, but they were my audience. When the scout team did well, the coaches would be furious and they'd lay into the first-string guys. If you can't beat these scrubs, how are you going to beat the other team's starters on Friday night? This always pleased me. It wasn't about beating my teammates, it was about proving to myself that I could win, even though I never got to play for real. At that point, I wasn't nearly as good as the starters, but I played like I was the one of those fierce little yappy dogs who has no idea how he's small and weak. I didn't back down or back off, even when I should have. But that, given everything I had in practice, was my way of getting better. It was my preparation for that one magical future day when Coach would send me into the play for our team. I prayed and prayed that day would come, but as the season wore on, it seemed less likely it would come to pass. I spent the first 4 days of the week giving 110% in practice. Then when game day rolled around, I'd suit up in my uniform and I'd hide candy where my thigh pads should have been for easier snack access during the game. I didn't even bother tying my cleats. I just prepared to take it easy on the bench. During the games, one thought would fill my mind. I can't wait until Monday. On Monday, I get to play again. On Monday, I have a chance to prove myself again. On Monday, I'd get to do the thing I loved. On Mondays, I get to work hard. Trailing behind the starters as we dashed through the human tunnel, I found my friend Speedy and I ran out onto the field with the team and then beeline straight to our spot on the bench. "Hey man," Speedy asked me, "you got the Sprites?" He knew I did. I always wrapped a few cans of Sprite with white medical tape so that it wouldn't be as obvious that we were kicking back, drinking sodas, and sneaking M&Ms during the game. As far as we were concerned, Speedy and I had front row seats at the best show in town. I accepted my role as spectator and number one fan during the games because I knew I always had Monday. When we don't yet see the results we want to see, it can be tempting to slack off. It can be hard to find a reason to keep investing in our dreams when we don't see the fruits of our work. I know what it feels like when the dream seems out of reach. Believe me, every outward sign, asthma, my weight, my lack of playing time, seemed to suggest that I would have been a better water boy or team mascot than running back, but I still wasn't willing to give up. That season, practicing with the team scout was a valuable time of preparation for me. It meant that whether we were conditioning or scrimmaging, I was going all out. For a musician, it might mean practicing for hours on end when no one else is listening. For actors, it may mean allowing a script to live in your heart as you prepare to give life to a character. For runners, it means logging mile after mile before you ever set foot on a race course. When you give 100% effort, you're preparing for the success you see in your mind. I'll admit that it took a pretty creative imagination to visualize success, given the realities of being a junior who was a fifth-string running back and didn't play. But despite the odds and without a clear path to success, I still hadn't given up on the dream that had been growing in my heart for as long as I could remember. The frustrated little kid who'd been stuck as an offensive lineman in Pee Wee League had morphed into someone who could finally embrace his role as a scrub. That doesn't mean that I'd given up or even that I accepted my role as fifth-string running back. I hadn't and I didn't. But I'd finally learned to find the silver linings in situations I wouldn't have chosen for myself. I know you've been in situations like that too. Maybe it's an athletic competition, or a school club, or a leadership role, or even an after-school job. Every time you find yourself in a position you didn't choose, or completing a task you'd rather not be doing, you can choose to make the most of that opportunity. You can use it to grow. And who knows who or what you'll grow into. Maybe the very person you've dreamed of being. Chapter 6.